Right, guys, it's that time to talk about some of the most exciting players that we would like to see in the Premier League come August, I guess. It's going to be a very exciting summer. There is a new article on ESPN's website, Tor Christian Carlson, talking through the 39, I know it's an odd number, but it's interesting. It makes you want to click, doesn't it? The 39 best players in the world under 21. Now, fortunately, some of the players that we want to talk about are players that a lot of people don't know too much about because they are actually young players that are in that article. So go check out that article.
Great article.
And stick around for a little bit longer as we go through 3 picks each that we would like to see come into the Premier League because it's a great league and we'd like to see more talent there. Kweku, who is your first pick that you would like to see in the Premier League?
I think this would probably be a lot of people's picks. A man who really burst onto the scene on the international stage at the World Cup, scored a lovely hat-trick against Switzerland and got an assist in that game as well. Gonçalo Ramos. Spearheaded Benfica to quarterfinals in the Champions League this season. Scored so many goals, and he's a bit of a throwback. His nickname is O Pistoleiro, which means the gunman in Portuguese. And
that is good.
It's an incredible nickname, and that's exactly what he is. He's not really interested in the other parts of the game. He's a poacher, but he can do it. He can drop deep and link play, but he wants to score goals. And players translate quite well from Portugal in terms of how they settle into the Premier League, especially in recent years. And
steady there.
Well, I think Darwin Núñez.
Yeah, he's getting it. He's definitely. Yeah.
And he's just a perfect replacement for someone like Harry Kane if he was to leave Spurs this summer. I think a lot of Spurs strikers that have been signed in this Harry Kane era have been swallowed by the shadow of Kane. If you look at Laurence, you look at Soldado, even Richarlison. And if a striker has a free run at it, somebody as young and as exciting as Gonçalo Ramos, and I think he could score a lot of goals for Tottenham. And so he's my pick for a player that I'd like to see in the Premier League next season.
Outside shout maybe for Manchester United as well. Just as I know a lot of United fans are sort of excited about him. Some people sort of drop in these, like you said, the poacher. They're like, we want another Van Nistelrooy maybe, which he isn't exactly that type. But also because of the players they already have, they look back at when he was just playing off Núñez the previous season. So there is this kind of, he could come into the league and play off a Rashford and a whoever else. So, I mean, he's a real prospect. And like you said, I think the Portuguese league seems to be a bit of a proving ground right now. A lot of people sort of thinking that is, like a little nursery, if you like, for Premier League clubs just go and pick people out.
A great ripple effect that I heard this week was that Ronaldo getting dropped by Ten Hag and then doing the interview.
Wow.
But more importantly, getting dropped by Ten Hag led to Fernando Santo having the gumption, let's say, to do the same for Ramos, which could lead to that hat-trick, which led to us being focused on him, which could lead him going all the way back round to Man United, which
good
is
hair
interesting.
as well.
Yeah. Solid hair. Here's another striker that I think there's a few options. I just think he's tailor-made for the Premier League. My first pick is Rasmus Højlund. Not Haaland, but quite similar, I've got to be honest. Plays for Atalanta, 7 goals. You might have noticed him recently, scored 5 over the international break for Denmark. He is lightning. And also just I've seen him score every different type of goal. And I think we're starting to see that physicality really come back in abundance back into the top players in football once again. I think we kind of walked away from it for a second. You saw the other guys and it wasn't totally about that. But as a central striker, I think he could be... He's not the finished article. The conversion rate can be higher, it can be better. But he's got the size, and as I say, glides past players, has the ability to press, great aggression from him as well. 6'3".
Yeah.
I think it's one where, again, I think they should be on high alert at Tottenham for a lot of different strikers because I think they need to get ready for Harry Kane leaving. And I don't think it's... Obviously, it's a huge loss, but I don't think it's the total end of the world because there's a lot of talent out there. It might take a second, but when you're going to bring in these players, you need to allow them to develop because that might be the problem for Tottenham as well in terms of who they can buy. So I think he could be a good fit there. I think Man United need a couple of strikers themselves, so he could be a good fit there as well. I just think he'd be great for the Premier League, even if you could... I mean, I think he's going to cost a lot of money. I think he cost 17 million, which was a bit of a surprise.
From Austria as well, like from Sturm Graz, which is... You're sort of like... If you're willing to take that bet on a guy from the Austrian league who's you want to take that on,
Yeah.
you're going to get resale value.
Yeah, and they've come out and said, look, it's going to need to be double that. So it might be one where, like, get that done now before it gets doubled again.
But do you not think it's a little bit too early? He's had one season at Atalanta, and his goal scoring return is not it's not that of Erling Haaland. I think maybe we're getting caught up in the source of a Scandinavian.
It's 1 in 2 though, 14 starts, 7 goals.
Yeah, for sure, and he's only 20 years old as well. I just would like to see a little bit more. I just want to see a bit more before you throw him into the pressure cooker of the Premier League at Manchester United, where he's expected to score goals, at Spurs, where he's expected to score goals. I want to see a little bit more.
I think that's a fair point. I would also say that there is a lot of money in the Premier League, and there's a lot of those teams in the middle ground. Newcastle, the profile fits there a little bit. West Ham, you've got Antonio, who's not getting any younger. Danny Ings has come in, but is not getting any younger as well. I think he's one that could be a squad player initially, and you sort of bleed in a little bit more. There's
also, I think we're obviously quoting the big teams here because it's more exciting to think of, Manchester United, Liverpool, Chelsea, whoever it is that's signing someone. If he was to go to a mid-table side, like even if you were to quote like a Brighton or someone like that, I'm not saying he's going there, but if he was to go somewhere like that,
or Forest, someone like that, there's a lot of teams. Pick a team,
pick anyone in the Premier League,
just get him here. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And from there, I feel like a lot of people see the lower Premier League sides as a proving ground, then go and get some more money from these very top tier sides. So it's not like we're not a million miles away from reality here that he could come to the Premier League. It just wouldn't be on the top 4 sides.
There's a few options from us for players that could go into that Liverpool midfield. That's going to be a real area of debate, and I think a lot of transfer news. Your first pick is a player that could fit in there?
Khéphren Thuram. I really like Khéphren Thuram. I mean, first of all, the name.
Yeah.
Mainly because he's of lineage, should we say. His dad's incredibly successful.
It doesn't his first name mean emperor as well?
Which I love.
Yeah.
And makes call Mo Salah the king. Maybe they need an emperor in the side as well. Yeah. We get a little prince. Prince
Boateng. I think he's finishing this year.
Sure, yeah. I love Purple Rain. So, and then I think the main thing is that when you're looking at young players like this, it's easy for them to explode onto the scene through a Nice or in Liga like that, where Nice have been surging up. And, I went to the South of France a couple of weeks ago and saw with my own eyes what was going on there. As a side, they are quite progressive. They are quite exciting. Yeah. So it's not unusual that he's doing that sort of thing. I think there would be a few more constraints on him in the Premier League, and his close control is amazing. When he gets out of very often they double up on him. They try and get 2 men, and he just goes between them, and then he's off. I think managers in the Premier League might put him through just a little bit more rigour, and there will be a few more constraints on him, because if the promising young talents in the Premier League at the moment, your Fodens, even the likes of Harvey Elliott who made that list and those kind of things. They have a lot more tactical discipline, should we say, than some of these guys.
What role do you see him in?
You'd see him as a progressive 8, probably, for a Premier League side, if not kind of the only reason I'd imagine he wouldn't go to Liverpool right now is because Liverpool have sort of earmarked Cody Gakpo as the guy who carries from midfield into attack, drops a little bit deeper, plays a progression of whatever it is that you want to call Firmino. So maybe not the Liverpool side. You could see him, though, fitting into a Newcastle as a progression of someone like a Joe Linton or... And I hate to say it, I know a lot of people like him. I don't actually think Newcastle fans are all that fond of Alan St-Maximin anymore. No. They need some attacking emphasis on that side. And so he would be great on that half space, running from deep, bringing it forward. He's a player that maybe now you look at him and you go, oh, okay, he's raw, he's tall, he's really majestic, amazing hair. You can see him in a Newcastle kit, bringing the ball forward and replacing some of those guys who... frankly, are brilliant to get Newcastle to this point, but feel like a bit of a stepping stone.
Sure, you're going to have to keep evolving. The thing I like about him, I quite like him defensively. I think he's got good awareness, and I think the interceptions of what I've seen from him, I think he reads the game quite well and uses those long legs to his advantage. I think it's a really good shout.
In the double pivot, he plays with that Hisham Boudouai, and he allows Aaron Ramsey to have not a renaissance or a nice season, but he plays a little bit better in the last few weeks, and that's because of what Thuram allows him to do. So I think he's multifaceted, and he not only can go forward, but he can also provide that shield.
A lot of people, obviously, because he's tall and he's quite broad as well, making those comparisons to someone like Paul Pogba. So difficult to reach those heights. Paul Pogba at his very best is like,
and again, I think defensively better, personally, from what I've seen.
Probably, although I've got to admit, I think Paul, very similarly maybe to Paul Pogba, he's up for that fight, and he's up for... if you're going to come through me, then I'm basically I'll battle back. Yeah. And the great thing about Pogba, which I think we overlooked, was his in-game intelligence, just to know when to go down when you want to get a tackle, those kind of things. He doesn't get the credit for those kind of things. And I think in this generation, because Pogba didn't get those flowers, we want to give those kind of emphasis to this kind of player. The only reason I wouldn't see him as a double pivot in the Premier League is there are too many players. So if he was to come, he'd come and he'd play alongside a Guimaraes or someone like that, or a Fabinho or someone like that. Yeah. You'd see him as that progressive 8 that can tackle higher up and be great in a transitional big side who just want to keep the pressure on. I'm not against him going to an Arsenal or something like that. I know it's probably not going to happen because Arsenal aren't looking for that profile of player. But if Granit Xhaka's not feeling it,
there'll be a moment when he's getting a little bit older as well, and he might have to transition him. Sticking with Liverpool, quick one from me. I think this developing story from James Allcott here. Wow. I feel like Ryan Gravenberch is one that we need to keep an eye on because Bayern Munich is saying he's not going anywhere, and you've got a new coach.
He's not gone anywhere all season.
And yet, he's not playing. Yeah. But he is class. I think he's a quality player. And what's been put out in the press a little bit, and maybe there's grounds for it, is that it's sort of this sort of bad egg thing being chucked at him. The truth is that Nagelsmann didn't like him. And he's a young player who was crucial for Ajax. He's gone to Bayern Munich. I think he's been caught up in the idea that, and I think he was promised actually a lot more minutes. But that's a very good midfield with a lot of good players. Even someone like Sabitza's going on loan. So Gravenberch's not getting the games that he wants. But he is such an exciting player for me. They're saying that he's a 10. I don't think he is. I think he's an 8 or a 6. I think he could. He's not really he can play as a 6, but I think it's almost a waste of his quality energy as well. So I think there's a gem there, and he's not being used. So I would love to see him at Liverpool if they weren't able to get Jude Bellingham, who is of course the one that they want.
Good German link.
You've got a midfielder as well as one of your picks.
Yeah, Xavi Simons. He's one of these PSG kids that has had to leave and go elsewhere to really find his feet.
Barcelona before that as well, right?
He's got pedigree, and he's a player that was earmarked, especially if you play Football Manager. He's so good on it, and this is part of the reason why I picked him. And PSV this season really found his feet, and he's added goals to his game. Maybe a little bit too lightweight for the Premier League, but just on the eye, he passes the eye test every single time. He's such a good player. I've had questions about Ten Hag's talent ID when it comes to signing players. He's an amazing coach, but some of the players he's brought in haven't necessarily worked as of yet.
Yep.
But I think Xavi Simons would be perfect in that Manchester United midfield. He can play along the front three as well, so maybe the evolution of a Bruno Fernandes, someone who can play in the 10, someone who can, if needed, play in the 8, someone who can play out wide as well. He really impresses me, and I'd love to see him in the Premier League.
And we've got to remember Man United are going to be, you would imagine, playing Champions League football next year, so you need that sort of high calibre of squad player, even if he starts from that point. One more midfielder, and then we've got a couple of centre-backs. Loz, you've gone for a man from Celta Vigo.
I've gone for Gabri Veiga. Right. Now, it kind of seems like an obvious pick because a lot of people have been profiling him recently.
Breakout star this year.
Breakout star, not only a breakout star on the domestic scene, but also internationally as well. They're considering him to be one of the great guys as well. So I'm excited to see what he can do. A lot of the big Premier League sides are sort of profiling him as the kind of player, because we were looking at the top couple of picks, or like the top 10, right?
So and in that top 10 you've got Gavi, you've got Pedri, you've got Bellingham. It's going to be a lot of talk about them, but it's going to be difficult for a lot of teams to get them.
And the thing is with those guys, it's either they know where they want to stay, which is probably Barcelona, and Barcelona are probably leveraging a bit of political, hey, your big stars could leave the league here, so the league could do something, or Jude Bellingham, his pick is narrowed already, right? Sure. So this is a player probably got a much wider spectrum of teams he could go to, right?
Best of the rest.
I can imagine him at whilst you could see him at a Chelsea, you could also see him at a Man City. Like, he's that level of player. And he, obviously, because of the Barcelona idea of Pedri and Gavi and those guys, you put him in a similar mould because he's progressive, because he can score, because
and that right-sided half space that he's playing as well. So if you want to tweak De Bruyne, or even some people starting to feel that De Bruyne's getting that little bit older. There's been a few rumblings between him and Guardiola at times as well. He could be the future, and maybe David Silva, but the other side also loves a long-range shot as well. Two centre-backs, and then we'll finish off with a road pick from Loz.
Right.
So I'll go first. Gvardiol, I think there's been so much talk about him. I think the thing that I think is so impressive about him more than anything is that range of passing, and that's why I think he's suited to those top sides who are going to have the ball a lot and are going to have to look to use the width and stretch the game, and I think he will be crucial for that. We've seen how good he's been at the World Cup, so not much more for me to say.
A lot of people need him as well.
Yeah. A lot of people probably need him as well.
Live
with Chelsea a lot, but they've got a lot of centre-backs.
Probably knock a few millions off of that after you saw Erling Haaland run riot against him when Leipzig played against Man City, and you saw Lionel Messi run circles around him as well. But an incredible centre-back who's probably going to go for excess of 100 mil.
Yeah. Another centre-back, ex-Chelsea.
Cobham Cub. I absolutely love Fikayo Tomori. He's one of my favourite players in world football, and was one of the key reasons why AC Milan won Serie A last season. This season's been a little bit more disjointed for not only him but the club as well. He's missed games through injury, but he knows how to play Premier League.
Who do you
football.
see him at?
Liverpool. And it kills me. It kills me to say it, but I think he's far enough removed from Chelsea that move could make sense. He's lightning quick. He's got ability on the ball. He's a leader now at AC Milan. And that's the best. That's a breeding ground for defending. That's where he goes to learn how to defend. Thiago Silva learned how to defend. I'm not comparing Tomori to Thiago Silva, but that's where he learned to defend. And he's got similar physical attributes to Thiago Silva. I saw him break onto the scene really in the biggest way against Liverpool 4 seasons ago. You beat us at Stamford Bridge 2-1.
I didn't do anything. But, yeah.
But he was amazing that day, and I think that any team looking for a centre back, Fikayo Tomori would be a great pick, and also a man who wants to break into Gareth Southgate's Euro 2024.
He needs to come home, doesn't he? Yeah.
I'm just saying, when you say he needs to come home, do you think Chelsea should put a bid in for him? Because surely you guys are like, why did we...
those bridges are burnt, unfortunately.
Surely not.
I'd love to see him at Arsenal. I think he could be...
Arsenal would be amazing, but surely the Chelsea bridges that were burned were the old...
Was Lampard and that regime.
Yeah.
I just don't know if he's somebody who would want to come back. I'd love to have him back. He's somebody that I've taken a heartbeat. I just see him working at somewhere else like Liverpool.
And one for the hipsters, Loz.
Lucas Diaz. He's currently down there in Portugal again.
In the nursery.
In the nursery at Sporting. And I think there's a lot of big talent right there right now. I was kind of looking down this list and I was like, we kept saying maybe someone will sign for Chelsea, maybe someone will sign for Liverpool, these kind of guys. I thought, we know where Wolves are going to go. They're always going to go back to the same nurseries. And he's performing really well in the under-23s and in other squads in the under category, should we say. It seems there's a lot of impressive stats surrounding him as well. I'm really quite excited to see where he goes. And I think the big thing for me is, especially if you want to play an 8, very often you convert a 10 or you convert an attacking midfielder right now and you just bank on the fact they might be able to get back or they'll be able to add that into their game. I think especially in Portugal and the way that Portuguese football is evolving right now, because they're a league where they don't have much pressure in terms of every team they play, they can get a bit more experimental. So you get those minutes where players can basically go, let's experiment with this formation and see how I play in it. So his evolution is going pretty quick.
Okay, guys, who did we miss out? Let us know in the comments below and make sure you check out that video, the 39 best players under 21.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.